In this episode, we revisit the fake Sister Lucy controversy, something I covered a couple years ago, got a lot of backlash for that, but which I'm revisiting today in light of new evidence I'm going to share with you. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to Forward Boldly. I'm Christine Niles. So before we discuss today's topic, offering a lovely prayer by St. Teresa of Avila. Many of you know this prayer. She, of course, was the great discalced Carmelite saint who reformed the Carmelite order in the 16th century after it had grown lax and had strayed from its mission. This was her prayer. Let nothing disturb you. Let nothing frighten you. All things are passing away. God never changes. Patience obtains all things. Whoever has God lacks nothing. God alone suffices. Words to live by. Remember these words. Print them out maybe. Put them on your wall, your desk, maybe memorize them. Turn to them often. Let nothing disturb you. Let nothing frighten you. Remember, our God is primarily a God of peace. And he desires to give you peace. Just remember that. Remember that especially as you are scrolling through social media, looking at your feed, reading various websites or listening to podcasters. And exercise discernment. If such sites more often than not lead to disturbance of your interior peace, if such websites lead to confusion, anger, fear, scandal, exercise discernment. Ask yourself, should I be reading these things? Are they good for my soul? Because if they harm the soul, why are you reading them? If they disturb your interior peace, how is that helpful? Now, I myself have done my fair share of exposing corruption and scandal in the church. Anybody familiar with my track record knows that is my focus as an investigative journalist. I've done it for more than a decade. But that's not all I do. It's not even the main thing that I do. As many of you know, and as I mentioned in my previous interview with Jason Jones, and if you haven't seen it, please go watch the whole thing. Really enjoyed that interview. I talked about the mission and the aim of STELLA Mars Media, and our motto is bringing hope to a world in need. Bringing hope to a world in need, because this world absolutely needs it. So much confusion, so much darkness, so much pain and suffering, so many lost souls. We should have compassion on those souls. We really should. I was once one of those souls. Many of you were once one of those souls. I remember what it was like. How much confusion, how much pain, how much suffering, because I didn't know where to look for the truth. And so my media nonprofit exists to help guide people towards the truth. Because when you guide people towards the truth, you really are serving God. And that is the purpose of our whole lives, is to serve God. That's why we're here. It's not to indulge ourselves. It's not to place ourselves first. It's not to lead comfortable, self-absorbed lives. It's to serve God in whatever capacity God has given you. Some serve him in different ways. Well, one of my ways that he's given me is to speak the truth. And he's giving me this platform to do so. And that means speaking the truth whether or not people like it, whether or not people love you or hate you. And believe me, I've had my fair share of both love and hate from both sides. In fact, from all sides. If anybody knows my track record, you know that I never follow the grain. Never. I never just follow the herd. And I have said and done things that have gotten people angry in my tribe, okay? I don't do it on purpose. I'm not doing it because I'm trying to invite or court controversy. In fact, I'm sort of a conflict avoidant person. I don't really like conflict. I don't really enjoy confrontation. I would much rather be at peace with people. But sometimes you have to say things that get people upset. Not because you want to, but because it's the truth. So today, I'm going to revisit the issue of the fake Sister Lucy controversy. Some of you may be very happy with what I say. I think some of you will probably be very upset with what I say because people have strong feelings about this. But what's most important is that we step back, lay the emotions and the biases aside, and be as neutral and objective as possible. Now, when we talk about the Sister Lucy controversy, we're of course referring to Sister Lucia dos Santos. She was one of the 3 shepherd children from Fatima. She was the only one to survive to old age. She became a Carmelite nun. She passed away in 2005. And in 2023, the church declared her venerable, which is, of course, the first step towards sainthood. Now, one of the theories that's been floating around for a while is that somewhere between 1948 and 1967, Sister Lucy either died or she was kidnapped, and she was replaced with an impostor, a fake. Now, please keep in mind that to maintain that theory, this would have involved a conspiracy of vast proportions, involving not only the Pope and top Vatican officials and numerous clergy, but also her entire Carmelite community where she lived for decades, and her whole family. She had a large family, lots of siblings, and her extended family, because we also know that uncles and nephews and cousins and various other people came to visit her throughout the years. And they all would have had to maintain that deceptive facade for decades and decades and decades until she died. The chief proponent of the fake Sister Lucy hoax is a man named Dr. Peter Chernovsky. You'll often see him on various websites and podcasts, usually sedevacantist websites and podcasts promoting this theory. He's even declared with moral and scientific certainty, his words, that a fake Sister Lucy replaced the real one from 1967 onwards. Now, sedevacantists, as you know, are people who believe the chair of Peter is vacant, meaning there currently is no valid pope. That's what they believe. And this theology is somewhat crucial to the fake Sister Lucy hypothesis. It's kind of the heart of why people promote this theory, because they object to the later Sister Lucy's claim that Pope John Paul II's consecration of Russia was adequate. Okay, how does this all fit together? Well, here's what Most Holy Family Monastery, which is run by the sedevacantist Diamond Brothers, says. All who reject the Vatican's version of the third secret and hold that John Paul II didn't sufficiently consecrate Russia, which includes about 100% of traditionally minded professing Catholics. Well, I'm not sure it's 100%, but that's what they believe. They would all have to agree with us that the post-Vatican II Sister Lucy was a fraud if Fatima is to make sense to their position. A position which rejects the post-Vatican II Sister Lucy's testimony that the third secret was revealed and that Russia was consecrated successfully by John Paul II, etc. John Paul II consecrated Russia to the Immaculate Heart in 1984. Now, some Catholics say the consecration was insufficient for various reasons, but Sister Lucy confirmed that 1984 consecration satisfied Our Lady's request in her third secret. Like I said, some disagree. One of the reasons they disagree is because they claim that that era of peace never ensued. Okay. Let's take a brief history lesson. I'm going to let you make up your mind as to whether or not that era of peace actually ensued, whether or not that consecration bore any fruit. Do you know what happened within 1 year of that 1984 consecration? A man named Mikhail Gorbachev became General Secretary of the Communist Party. He was the first leader in decades who was not a hardline Stalinist. He wanted reform. He launched Glasnost, which is Russian for openness, meaning he wanted to be more open to the rest of the world, establishing better relations with other countries. He also launched Perestroika, which means restructuring. He wanted a total restructuring of the government and the country's laws. Censorship of speech was greatly relaxed. Political prisoners were set free. People were finally allowed to criticize the government for the first time in decades. That was impossible before. In 1987, Gorbachev met with Pope John Paul II at the Vatican. It was the first ever meeting of a Soviet leader with the Pope. It was absolutely historic. Relations between the Vatican and Russia were normalized almost overnight. In 1988, for the first time, the Soviet Union allowed massive public demonstrations of Christianity. Thousands of churches that had been closed were returned by the government back to Christians. Atheism as an official state religion came to an end. Amazing. 1989. First semi-free elections were held in the Soviet Union since its founding in 1917. And the Communist Party's monopoly on power was finally broken for the first time. The most dramatic changes would follow after that, starting with the fall of the Berlin Wall in November 1989. I remember that. Wall-to-wall coverage. Absolutely historic. That was followed by the collapse of communist regimes all over Eastern Europe. Peaceful collapse of communist regimes. No violent overthrow of the government. And of course, the most dramatic of all, the collapse and disbanding of the Soviet Union in 1990. Now, there was an attempted coup in 1991 to reverse those changes and restore strict communism, but that failed. And that failure sealed the USSR's fate for all time. On Christmas Day in 1991, the Soviet Union officially disbanded. The Soviet flag lowered over the Kremlin, and in a moment, the world's largest and most militant atheist empire in history, one that killed tens of millions of people, among them Catholics, persecuted, thrown into prison, jailed, prisoned for decades. The most militant atheist empire in history ceased to exist. And all of it without a shot being fired. That is nothing short of miraculous. Even more, by 1996, more than 10,000 churches had been reopened, with the Russian Orthodox Church going from 7,000 functioning parishes in 1986 to 20,000 in 1996. There was greater religious freedom all throughout Russia. People could be baptized. People could buy and read Bibles publicly and openly. People could have public religious processions. Sister Lucy repeatedly said, after seeing all these changes, that they were a direct fruit of the 1984 consecration, and that, quote, Russia is beginning her conversion. Pope John Paul II also linked the collapse of communism with the consecration and Our Lady's promise. Now, Russia continues that process of returning to its Christian roots. It's ongoing. It's very imperfect, of course. But Vladimir Putin, and yes, there are many criticisms of Vladimir Putin. I'm not here to defend him or praise him. I'm simply noting that he is a member of the Orthodox Church. He regularly attends Mass. He prays. He promotes and supports and favors the Orthodox Church. He openly favors Christianity. He speaks about it a lot, promoting it, encouraging his people to practice the Christian faith. Again, he's not perfect. I know he's cracked down in Catholic churches. Again, not perfect. But the very fact that he is openly a member of the Orthodox Church, he openly promotes prayer and Christianity, that was impossible just a few decades ago in the USSR. And the Communist Party today is a minority party in Russia. It is out of favor. It's been out of favor for a very long time. It has not held power in decades. So the next time someone tells you that the consecration didn't bring about any real results, again, they either don't know their history, they don't understand the significance of their history, or if they do, they're being dishonest. The changes that happened in Russia and all across communist Eastern Europe were nothing short of breathtaking. I would say miraculous. So as far as I'm concerned, that objection to the consecration completely falls flat, utterly fails. Not an objection. But in any case, returning to the fake Sister Lucy hoax. So I did a pretty comprehensive debunking of this theory back in 2023. It's titled Fake Sister Lucy ? You can watch it on YouTube to get a more in-depth analysis of the various claims that were put forth by Chernovsky, the so-called experts that he paid to analyze Lucy's photos. So I'm not going to go into everything, here. If you want, you can watch that first and then come back to this. Now, in that prior episode, I did notice that some of the analysis was dishonest, because I do want to bring out this point. Again, I think it's a very important point. And this requires you actually digging into the reports, not just taking his word for it or reading the summary. You actually have to dig into the reports, which is what I did. As investigative journalists, you always have to look at the original sources. You don't just take someone's word for it. You don't just read the summaries. You actually have to dig down, read the fine print and the actual, original sources themselves. And that's what I did. One of the companies he paid to analyze her face, and which produced a report that concluded that she was not the same person, was Animetrics. And here's something that they included in the fine print that most people didn't know. Quote, Animetrics does not employ any algorithms that account for differences in features due to aging. I'm going to read that again because it's so unbelievable. Animetrics does not employ any algorithms that account for differences in features due to aging. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I would say unbelievably dishonest. The face continues to grow and change into old age. Don't take it from me. This is a well-known fact from any scientist who has studied this. For instance, just quoting from the Scientific World Journal. Craniofacial growth does not stop in young adulthood, but is a continuous process even into later ages. This is well known. And yet the company he pays to analyze her facial features and to produce a report that concludes she's not the same person took none of that into account. None of it. That is totally dishonest, and it entirely nullifies the report. The report is invalid, period. It cannot be included. Now, moving on, we have a little bit more information today, a little more evidence to share with you today. What is amazing is that we now have access to artificial intelligence, AI, which has been a real game changer. In the past, we would have had to pay a lot of money to companies to perform these expert computer facial analyses. But today we have free access to accurate AI facial analysis online. So what I did was I uploaded multiple photos of Sister Lucy to various AI platforms, primarily Grok and ChatGPT. And I asked them a neutral question, simply analyze the faces of these 4 photos and tell me if it's the same person. I made the important caveat that they need to take into account the fact that the elderly Sister Lucy is wearing dentures. And we'll go into why that's a crucial fact in a little bit. Now, Grok went into greater detail, so I'm actually going to read Grok's response. So like I said, Grok's analysis took into account aging, weight gain, the fact that the elderly Sister Lucy was wearing dentures again, key fact that must be taken into account because it actually affects the structure of your bone, the shrinkage of your jaw that results, etc. I'll go into that in a little bit. Just very important to know, though, that Sister Lucy had very terrible teeth, had major teeth problems. They were in such terrible condition that she actually had all of her teeth removed and replaced with dentures in 1948. She wore those dentures from 1948 until her death in 2005. It's almost 60 years of wearing dentures. It's going to have major effects on your facial features and how your face and your bone begin to change. But here is Grok's full analysis. Number 1, overall skull shape and proportions. All 4 images show the same very wide, almost square jawline and a relatively short, broad lower face. The distance from the bottom of the nose to the chin is noticeably long in all photos, a very distinctive trait that is consistent. 2, nose, shape, wide, slightly bulbous tip with a gentle dorsal hump. Identical in all 4 images. The elderly photo still shows the same wide nostrils and tip shape despite age-related drooping. 3, eyes and brow ridge. Deep-set eyes with a prominent, heavy brow ridge and slightly hooded upper lids. The shape and spacing of the eyes, as well as the straight, thick eyebrows, match perfectly across all ages. 4, philtrum and upper lip. The philtrum is that little crease that runs from the center of your nose down to your lip. Very pronounced deep philtrum with a wide, relatively flat upper lid. Cupid's bow is subtle. This feature is extremely consistent and unmistakable, even in the elderly photo. 5. Mouth and dentures effect in the elderly photo. The elderly woman has fuller cheeks and a slightly more forward-positioned lower lip because of dentures, but the underlying bone structure, wide jaw, long chin-to-nose distance is still clearly the same person. The natural mouth corners in the younger photos turn slightly downward, even with dentures. The elderly photo retains that same downward tilt when she is not smiling. Okay, so anybody who has studied bone density loss in the face will tell you that dentures have an enormous impact on the shape of your jaw and chin. And that's because the loss of your teeth leads to bone loss in your jaw. And the result is not only shrinkage of the jaw, but something called prognathism, meaning the jaw gradually swings outward, leading to a protruding chin. Our bones require pressure in order to remain ossified, to remain strong. One of the reasons that astronauts who spend significant time in space lose so much bone density is because they don't experience the pressure of gravity on their bones. They don't experience that pressure. And so their weightlessness leads to bone density loss, deossification, meaning the bones shrink, they grow more brittle, they even change shape. It's one of the reasons astronauts are equipped with a gym in space. It's not just to stay in shape, but to counteract bone density loss and the muscle atrophy that comes while they're in space. Now, when you lose teeth and you can no longer chew with your natural teeth, you're no longer applying daily pressure to your jaw bones from eating and chewing. And that leads directly to deossification of both the upper and the lower jaws. And this is why you see elderly people with shrunken mouths and jaws. It's not because they're missing teeth, but it's because their jaws have literally shrunken because they've lost bone. And that shrinking not only changes the shape of your jaw, but it also causes your lower mandible to start swinging outward, which means you have a chin that protrudes over time. One of the so-called slam dunks that fake Sister Lucy proponents love to cite is the difference in profile between the young Sister Lucy and the old Sister Lucy. The young Sister Lucy has a chin that's flat and aligned with her face, while the older one has a chin that juts out. But that change can be easily explained by what I just said. The fact that Sister Lucy had all her teeth removed and she wore dentures from 1948 till her death. That's almost 60 years of wearing dentures. There would have been significant bone density loss and changes in the shape of her jaw, accompanied by a significant chin protrusion after so many years of wearing dentures. So that's it. That's it. Easily explained, easily debunked. Okay, moving on. Number 6, other consistent details. Round face shape that becomes fuller with age, but never loses underlying width. Short neck and forward head posture appear in both young and old photos. Conclusion. Yes, all 4 photographs are of the same woman at different stages of life. The younger black and white images and the color elderly photo show consistent rare facial proportions. Very wide jaw, long lower face, deep philtrum, low set ears, heavy brow that are not easily mimicked by 2 different people. The apparent differences in the elderly photo are fully explained by natural aging, weight gain, and the use of full dentures. So, Grok's conclusion, with high confidence, same person across all 4 decades. As far as I'm concerned, that's conclusive. And remember, the burden of proof is not on me to prove that it's the same person. The burden of proof is on all of those offering this wild theory that Sister Lucy was kidnapped or that she died somewhere in the 1940s, that her entire family, her entire Carmelite community, church leaders, Vatican officials, the Pope himself conspired over the course of 40 to 60 years to deceive the public into believing an impostor was the real Sister Lucy. The burden of proof is on you to prove that your thesis is true. And you have not met your burden of proof, not even close. In fact, this was easily debunked. Again, Got to watch the first episode because I go into a lot more detail there. Quite frankly, I'll be honest with you, it's hard for me to believe that so many Catholics believe this. It is. It's hard for me to believe so many Catholics believed this. And this leads me to my next point. Those who have fallen for this hoax or who are tempted to fall into it, please pray for discernment. I mean, all of us have to pray for it. I pray for it every day. I pray for wisdom every day because it is so easy to be led astray. You should never get to a point in our faith where we think, oh, I can never be led astray because I'm so strong in my faith. Everyone can be led astray at any moment. Remember, we're not called simply to be holy. We're called to be wise. We're called to be wise, even cunning. Yeah, cunning, our Lord himself commanded. Be cunning as serpents, innocent as doves. That's Matthew 10:16. Cunning means shrewd, artful, clever, smart. We need to be smart in the way we understand and live out our faith. Smart. But too often, it's the other way around, isn't it? We're innocent as serpents and cunning as doves, meaning that's not a compliment. Serpents are not innocent. They're the exact opposite. And doves are not cunning. They're the exact opposite. But too often, that's what we are as Christians. How often do we pray for wisdom? I mean, God will give it to us, but we have to ask him. Scripture says you have not because you ask not. We have to ask for these things. We have to ask them regularly to be protected from being led astray. It's so easy. There are too many pitfalls, too many ways in which we can fall off the right path, either to the right or the left. So we need to pray for wisdom. We need to pray for discernment. And above all, we need to pray for humility, because we can only accept the truth if we have humility. Those who lack humility, those who are proud and arrogant, are the ones who are most easily deceived. This is a consistent thing that I have seen, is the ones who lack humility are the ones who are most easily deceived, the ones who most easily lead others astray, and the ones who tend to fall. And often, God will allow the proud to stumble and fall, even in some cases, great falls, in order to learn humility. All right. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Thank you for your support and for your prayers, because I do need prayers. So pray for me for wisdom, pray for me for discernment, pray for me for humility, and pray above all that I'm always faithful to the mission and the goal of Stella Maris Media, which is to bring hope to a world in need, to spread the truth, and to do so faithfully according to the will of God. That is my whole desire, to speak the truth faithfully and to live faithfully according to the will of God. So please pray for me, especially those who might be upset with me because you've watched this and you disagree with me. Why don't you pray for me? Thank you so much again for your prayers, for your support, and I wish all of you a blessed and wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and in the words of St. Joan of Arc, in God's name, forward, boldly.